a knight, after being defeated in battle, is reincarnated into a behemoth, one of the most powerful monsters, but with a small drawback. It is a baby and looks surprisingly like an adorable house cat. It is adopted by a beautiful elf whom it decides to protect with all its might. The protagonist wakes up in a cave, not quite knowing how it got there. It tries to remember its past and remembers being struck down by a demon's sword. It deduces that it has been reincarnated. An information screen appears before it, and it discovers that it has been reincarnated into a behemoth, an S-rank creature, so dangerous that it takes entire armies to finish one off. The protagonist feels conflicted, since in its past life it was a knight who swore to protect humanity. It approaches a pond and, seeing its reflection, it realizes that it has an incredibly cute appearance, resembling a simple cat. The next morning, in the nearby town where the mysterious cave is located, a beautiful young elf wakes up. She opens his window and gets dressed to start his day, grabbing a pair of swords and heading out, returning to our cat. The protagonist looks at his reflection in the pond, pondering the irony of going from a knight to a monster, and wonders how grateful he should be for this second chance at life. Behind him appears a low-ranking monster, clearly intent on eating him. The protagonist searches his skill bar for something to defend himself. He uses rock howling to throw a rock and take out the monster. The protagonist realizes he hasn't eaten since his reincarnation. He smells the defeated monster and decides to taste it, finding it delicious. He begins to eat it. He then discovers that he has the ability to steal skills from the monsters he devours. He also learns that he can use a storage skill to save items and decides to save the leftovers for later. The beautiful elf girl travels to a coliseum where she is allowed entry after showing a badge. Meanwhile, the protagonist continues to defeat and devour all the monsters he encounters, from small dragons to minotaurs, accumulating a wealth of new abilities. The elf enters the coliseum and uses a rock to light up the dark hallways. The protagonist finds a treasure chest hidden in the cave, which excites him, as he never managed to find one in his past life. He opens the chest and discovers a large crystal. Suddenly, the space around him begins to distort, and he is teleported to another location. The protagonist suspects that it might have been a trap, and realizes that he is on the back of a ground dragon, another S-rank monster. The dragon, upset at being awakened, begins to attack him. The protagonist dodges it and begins to throw rocks at it, but its skin is too tough, causing the rocks to bounce off the ceiling. The dragon attacks with its claws, and the protagonist uses Iron Body, a skill that hardens his body. The blow knocks him back, breaking the skill and causing significant damage. The dragon is surprised that he was able to withstand the attack, but continues his assault with its tail. The protagonist uses a combination of skills to counterattack and escape through a hole in the ceiling created by the bouncing rock. The elf girl explores the halls of a dungeon, remembering how, as a child, an elf saved her from an attack by a monster. The protagonist eventually reaches the halls of the dungeon, trying to reach the surface, but is too injured to continue, believing it might be the end of his second life. Fortunately, our beautiful elf of great feelings finds him while exploring the halls and decides to help him. The protagonist wakes up in a comfortable bed, covered in bandages. The elf enters the room with a tray of food, delighted to see the little cat awake. The protagonist, seeing her, is stunned by her beauty and thinks she must be an angel. The elf tells him that she was very worried about him and that she doesn't understand what a kitten like him was doing in a dungeon. The protagonist realizes that she hasn't realized that he is a monster and thinks that he is a normal cat. For the next few days, the elf takes care of the kitten, feeding him, sleeping with him, and tending to his wounds until he is fully recovered. One morning, the girl leaves for work. The protagonist reflects on everything the elf did for him and decides to accept her as his master and protect her with his life. He sneaks out the window and follows her to the dock, where a canoe is ready to take her to the dungeon. He manages to hide without anyone noticing. The cat follows the elf through the dungeon, avoiding being seen. She knows that her mistress is in great danger, especially for being a woman, and prepares to act if necessary. The elf girl encounters a group of goblins and, with incredible speed, easily defeats them. The protagonist is amazed, having never seen someone so fast, but also notices that their large swords hinder her movements. Another goblin reveals itself. Despite having fulfilled her quota, the elf girl refuses to retreat and insists on continuing the battle. The protagonist realizes that this is bad because the goblin is not an ordinary one. He is a wizard. The goblin casts a fire spell and the girl freezes in fear. The protagonist rushes in and manages to get her out of range of the attack. She wants to fight but cannot use her skills as it would reveal to her mistress that she is not a simple cat. So she just scratches the goblin's face, who recoils in pain and falls down the stairs. The elf girl is surprised to see her cat and wonders what he is doing there. They leave the dungeon, and the elf places the kitten on her chest and pets it, thanking him for saving her. The protagonist feels like he is in heaven. They head to the Adventurers Guild, where everyone envies the cat resting on his chest. An adventurer named Kazman greets the elf, who we now know is called Arya. Kazman asks her to consider joining his party, but Arya once again tries to politely decline. Kazman insists and tries to touch Arya, but his cat jumps off his chest and bites Kazman's hand. The man screams and struggles to shake off the cat, while the protagonist thinks to himself that this will teach him to respect his master. Kazman manages to shake the cat off of him, but not before the cat scratches his face and then returns to Arya's chest. Angered, Kazman draws his sword, but is stopped by someone who asks if he thinks it is wise to brandish a weapon in the guild. It is Arnaldo, a former B-rank adventurer who now works as the guild's receptionist. Intimidated by Arnaldo, Kazman lies, claiming he has something urgent to do, and flees the scene. Arya thanks Arnaldo for his help, and he tells her to let him know if Kazman bothers her again. Arnaldo also notices Arya's new companion, and comments on how protective the cat is of its owner. Arya tells him that her cat has saved her twice that day, and decides to keep him, and names him Tama. This makes the protagonist very happy, as it means he can keep it for the rest of his life. Arya hands the elf ears to Arnaldo, proving that she completed her mission. They go to celebrate at a restaurant, where Arya drinks a few too many. Tama starts getting ready, and Arya accuses him of being cruel for ignoring her. Tama notices that Arya has a penchant for drinking, and becomes a little more inhibited when she does so. Arya warns him that if he keeps ignoring her, she won't let him bathe with her. She puts Tama in her basket and heads to the baths. Tama tries to remind himself that he's an honorable knight and resists the idea of entering the women's bathhouse, but he fails. While Arya prepares for her bath, Tama remembers that he is a knight and wants to refuse to enter the women's bath, but it's useless. Once inside, he tries not to look too much at his master, but the current makes it impossible and pulls him closer to her. Arya looks somewhat sad and asks Tama if he thinks she could ever become strong enough. She confesses that years ago, demons attacked her homeland, but someone came to their rescue, Alicia, the sacred sword, the elf who saved her as a child. Since then, Arya vowed to one day become as strong as Alicia and protect those in need. Tama recognizes the name and knows she's a famous elven heroine. Another day, Arya goes to the guild with Tama, where Arnaldo greets them and warns it's a bad day and advises them to leave. But it's too late. Kazman appears to greet them. Tama immediately gets on guard, but Kazman shows an order from the Baron stating that the creature that injured him must be put to death. Arya is devastated and pleads for mercy, but Kazman tells her it's distasteful to revoke orders already issued. He offers to settle the matter with a duel. If Arya wins, Tama can live, but if she loses, Kazman will take her as his wife. Arya has no choice but to accept the duel. That same night, they head to an arena, where Arnaldo announces the fight between Kazman, a C-rank adventurer, and Arya, a D-rank adventurer. Kazman acknowledges the disparity in their abilities and agrees that someone can help her. He calls for a volunteer from the audience, but no one steps forward. The only one willing to fight alongside Arya is Tama. Arnaldo confirms this and asks Arya if she accepts him as her partner. The girl hesitates, but Arnaldo says Tama is a true knight in shining armor. Kazman mocks the cat and agrees to fight both. Tama is ready to make him pay for making his mistress cry. Arnaldo starts the battle, and Tama immediately charges at Kazman. Kazman mocks him again and swings his sword, but Tama easily dodges. Tama knows he won't be able to defeat him without using his skills. Arya attacks using her acceleration ability, but Kazman dodges and kicks her in the stomach. Kazman notes her speed but remarks it's all she has. Arya throws some daggers, but Kazman blocks them with his cape and then counters with his sword. Arya manages to block his attacks with her blade but struggles to keep up. Kazman taunts her, saying her heavy swords are unsuitable and joking that a kitchen knife would suit her better. Tama watches helplessly as Arya is disarmed, knowing he could defeat Kazman in one blow if he used his abilities. Kazman is about to declare himself the winner when Tama steps in, using his iron body skill to shatter Kazman's sword. Tama then unleashes a wind attack, sending Kazman headfirst into a tree, where his weapon strikes his groin. Everyone is stunned, wondering what just happened. Tama accepts that everyone will now know he's a monster, and that they might eliminate him. But he's okay with it since he was able to protect his mistress. Arnaldo and Arya realize Tama understands human speech and can use skills, concluding he must be an elemental cat. Everyone is thrilled, and Tama can't believe how mistaken they are. Arya is declared the winner. Tama wakes up one morning on Arya's chest. The girl greets him and asks him to cuddle with her a bit longer. Tama comes up with a better way to please her and gives her a small lick on the ear. Arya gets very excited and asks him to do it again. In the afternoon, they head to the smithy, where a cute girl with tiger ears named Vulcan is working. Vulcan greets them and notices Arya is accompanied by a small cat. Arya explains that he is an elemental cat she decided to adopt. Vulcan gets excited and asks if she can hold him for a moment. Arya gladly agrees, and the girls gush over his cuteness. Tama can't believe his luck, being reincarnated as a monster and pampered like he has been these past few days. Vulcan asks Arya why she's visiting since she's still working on her last order. Arya tells her she wants armor for Tama. Vulcan loves the idea and immediately gets to work. She takes the necessary measurements and suggests using magic to make it adjustable since Tama is still a kitten and will grow. She also plans to cover important areas without sacrificing mobility. Vulcan works all night, and by the next day, the armor is ready. Arya thinks Tama looks adorable in his new armor, and Tama is grateful to Vulcan for completing it in just one night. Vulcan then tells Arya about a problem with her previous order, her longswords. She explains that she can't find a way to lighten them without compromising their durability. Arya admits she still struggles to wield them properly, but neither of them can figure out the issue. Vulcan suggests accompanying Arya to the dungeon to observe her fighting style and come up with a solution. The girls head to the dungeon, and Vulcan immediately crushes a pair of goblins with her large hammer. Tama acknowledges her incredible strength, befitting of the Tiger Ears lineage. A goblin uses a fire spell against Vulcan, but she absorbs it with her claws and sends it back at him. Arya is confused by this ability, and Vulcan explains it's an enchantment she gained as a blacksmith, allowing her to imbue different elements into her armor. An orc approaches, and it's Arya's turn to fight. Although she finds it repulsive, she agrees to face it. Drawing her two swords, she uses acceleration to close the distance. The orc blocks her attack and leaves her guard open. As it swings its weapon toward her, Tama uses his iron body to shield her, allowing Arya to finish the orc with her sword. Despite the victory, Arya feels disheartened for not defeating the orc alone. Vulcan approaches and explains his findings. Long swords throw her off balance, making her movements clumsy and easy to predict. Arya begs him to help her improve, and Vulcan tells her that they have the perfect opponent for that in the next level, which turn out to be some species of octopus called ropers. Tama knows that if one grabs her, it'll be hard to escape, so Arya will need to think carefully about each move. Arya uses her acceleration, but the roper blocks her with its tentacles, preventing her from closing the gap. She tries to find a blind spot, but it's no use. The roper snatches one of her swords. Now fighting with a single sword, Vulcan notices Arya moving much faster. Arya cuts off a few tentacles, but the roper counterattacks and breaks her remaining sword. Vulcan tosses her a small dagger, which Arya uses along with the broken sword to defeat the roper. One more remains. Arya rushes toward it, now much faster and more agile. She easily dodges its attacks and counters, cutting several tentacles at their base. Unfortunately, the roper releases a white substance as it's attacked, splattering Arya. She becomes enraged, insisting that only Tama is allowed to do such a thing to her. She unleashes her new move, Cutting Gale, and defeats the roper. Her friends rush to her side, and Tama realizes her new move stems from using weapons suited to her fighting style. While no one is watching, Tama approaches one of the defeated ropers and steals its abilities by biting it. He immediately regrets it. The taste and texture are awful, but gains tentacle summon and unlimited slime discharge abilities. Meanwhile, Arya keeps slicing the last roper in a sinister manner, furious about being splattered, reiterating that only Tama can do that to her. Vulcan shares her conclusions with Arya, who admits she chose the longswords out of admiration for the Sword Saint. However, she now realizes they're not suited for her, and is willing to try daggers instead. Tama is delighted to hear this. He climbs onto her and purrs, trying to tell her she'll become much stronger this way. Vulcan suggests delving deeper into the dungeon, but first proposes they take a break. She leads them to a safe area with a small bath. Vulcan assures them no one ventures there because it's protected by the Philosopher's Stone, which floats between two branches. Hearing this, Arya can't help but recall the day her hometown was attacked. The girls prepare to bathe, and Tama tries to avert his eyes, but it's futile because Arya insists he bathe with her. While the girls are washing up, Arya asks Vulcan about her group of explorers. The question pains Vulcan, who explains that they split up because some of her companions became pregnant. Vulcan warns Arya to be cautious, as elemental cats can mate with other creatures. This revelation shocks Tama, who now understands why this ability is listed among his skills. Vulcan also warns that when Tama matures and goes into heat, he might get a bit wild with her. While Tama knows he would never do such a thing, Arya is thrilled by the idea and asks Tama to grow up quickly so they can purr and meow together. Tama and Vulcan are dumbfounded by her words. The group continues exploring the dungeon and encounters a large monster. Arya will take care of it, and Vulcan will provide support. This will be their final test. Arya uses her acceleration and manages to strike the Minotaur, but her attack isn't strong enough to cause damage. Vulcan steps in, swinging her hammer at the Minotaur, which blocks with its shield, creating an opening for Arya to attack again. Arya delivers a series of quick strikes, and Tama notices something unusual. He begins to suspect her true power is hidden in her chest. The Minotaur, weakened by the attacks, starts slamming the walls, causing a cave-in over Vulcan. Luckily, Tama reacts in time and destroys the falling rocks. Arya delivers the finishing blow to the Minotaur, celebrating her victory over a C-rank monster. Vulcan is amazed and grateful that Tama saved her. The group heads to the guild to sell monster parts. Arnold, or as Arya calls him tenderly, Anna, notices fine, deep cuts on the materials. Vulcan attributes them to Arya's new attacks, and this fills Anna with pride as she has witnessed Arya's significant progress since arriving. The girls drink to celebrate. Arya thanks Vulcan for all her help, reminding Tama of his old days of celebration with his companions. Vulcan suggests forming a team, as it's clear they work well together. Arya is flattered but nervous, having never been part of a team and unsure of how it should work. Tama helps her by placing her hand on top of Vulcan's. Understanding his gesture, Arya agrees to form a team with Vulcan. The girls continue celebrating, eventually falling into a deep sleep together, with Tama stuck between them. While resting, Tama discovers an option in his skill list to evolve into his second phase. He realizes that evolving might make others recognize him as a behemoth, forcing him to leave Arya. However, since he can choose his evolution, he decides to remain in his first phase to stay by her side forever. Days pass, and Arya begins training with her new fighting style. She explores dungeons with Vulcan, who eventually gifts her her first pair of daggers. One afternoon, while walking through town with Tama, Arya hears a commotion and sees two men attacking a small homeless girl in the street. Arya intervenes, angering the men. However, recognizing the elemental cat who took down Kazman, they retreat to avoid conflict. Arya helps the girl, named Lala, and upon learning she's an orphan, invites her to come with them. Arya takes Lala to the church, where several orphan children excitedly run up to Arya to play. The nun who lives there assures Arya that Lala will be well cared for, and thanks her for everything she's done for the orphanage. Tama notices that Arya is very kind, promising to protect her with all her strength. One afternoon, Anna summons Arya to the guild. Upon arrival, she greets Arya with congratulations. Arya has finally achieved C-rank status. Tama and Vulcan are overjoyed for their friend, who acknowledges she couldn't have done it without them. Anna urges her not to be so modest and to take pride in the fruits of her hard work. Their celebration is interrupted by murmurs among the adventurers, who are gathered around the announcement board, captivated by something important. Anna explains it's due to recent disappearances in the city of Leonard. Rumors suggest demons are responsible. Arya declares that she won't let this go unchecked and asks Anna for all the details. Hey, if you made it to this part of the video, don't forget to write the word Exquisito in the comment section. Thank you so much and see you in the next video. Hey, if you made it to this part of the video, don't forget to write the word Exquisito in the comment section. Thank you so much and see you in the next video.